has more offensive production than he can provide. So we'll have to see. I would like to see more from him next year, maybe even just 35, 40 points, but that's even asking a lot. So I would just like to see some more consistency at least from him, and not games where all you notice from him is him taking a dumb penalty. But
Exactly.
yeah, but looking into the chat here with a couple questions, Drew said the big thing going forward, do they continue to play like this, or do they revert back to how they played on the road trip in Canada? I think that's the big question everybody has right now.
I think that they're going to keep it the way they've been playing tonight. They had, and I know I harped on them pretty badly last show about their March. I know we're rounding out March tonight, but they won the majority of their games this month. So, and the majority of them are at home. So I really feel like they have the chance here to take the next 3 at home and then clean up in Arizona. I think it's totally doable. The game on Sunday is not going to be an easy one. Nathan MacKinnon and company there have been having a decent season, and they're fighting for their playoff life as well. So I feel like you're going to see another game just like tonight. I really do. I think it's going to be very similar in how it shakes out.
Yeah, I think so too, and it's going to be another important game if Kessler gets tasked with shutting down Nathan MacKinnon. I mean, it's going to be just as hard, if not harder, because Kessler's been tested against fast opponents all season because of his hip injury. And I feel like going against MacKinnon, who's arguably one of the faster players in the National Hockey League, and the way he's been playing as of late, and really the way he's been leading the Avalanche, that's going to be just as tough, if not even more difficult task than facing Ondrej Kase. But if that line can play like they did tonight, I'm not as worried as I was going into this game.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I was way more worried about this game being nastier than it really was. Like you said, There was a couple of things here and there, but it wasn't as dirty as we thought it was going to be. Colorado, though, I mean, Nathan MacKinnon to me is just scarier offensively than Ondrej Kopitar.
Yeah,
and I feel like he can definitely outskate Ryan Kessler. As we've seen him, he got beat a couple of times in the game against Vancouver. I know that who was it? Was it Sutter that beat him a couple of times? That guy's fast.
Yeah, it was.
But I mean, McKinnon's no joke. He's on fire right now, and he's my Hart Trophy pick if they make the playoffs. So I really feel like that's a dangerous game for the Ducks. We'll see what team shows up, though. They need the team that showed up tonight, and I feel like they're going to get it because it's a home game, and this team really has that playoff fire turned on according to what we saw tonight.
Yeah, and we'll break down that game and the remaining 4 games a little bit near the end of the show. Getting on to the chat again, we still have a couple more questions. So Drew coming through in the chat saying, what do you think the long-term plan is for Marcus Pettersson? Has he earned a spot for next year at this point? And he says he saw him in Dallas. He's a big kid, just needs to fill in more.
That's a great question, really. He has a lot of potential. He's seen a lot of ice time since he came in against that game against Detroit about a month and a half ago. So he has the potential to make the team, and there's also the opportunity here because of what may or may not happen with Kevin Bieksa if he gets the next contract, the one year $1 million like we talked about that Bosch had, but Bosch is going to retire. So there's definitely an open spot. He's going to have to fight for it, though. I mean, there's a couple of guys in the goals that would love to come up here and play in Anaheim. You're talking about Jacob Larson, which we've been talking about, I feel like, every show. When is he going to get a chance to come up? And even guys like Andy Walensky, who was scratched tonight, has been called up. There's opportunity there as well. I feel like he could make the team, though. I really do. He's gotten a long look. But we'll see what happens. It's a long summer, and training camp always brings something new. And I know the Ducks, they were really high on Jacob Larson. I mean, we've been talking about how we were shocked that he hasn't even seen the ice.
Yeah.
Or called up. He's been passed over several times. So maybe he'll get a shot here in the summer. But I really feel like Pettersson has a good chance of making the team.
Yeah, I feel like he has a kind of a foot in front of Larson just because of the fact that he's been called up and he's kind of stuck with the team right now. But it's really going to be between those guys. I feel like only one of them probably makes the roster out of camp if they decide to go that route because they're both left-handed defensemen. And you know that Lindholm and Fowler are going to fill out those first 2 pairings. So I feel like only one of them makes it. As for Pettersson, I've liked what I've seen from him. I can't complain. He hasn't made too many big errors. He's got 4 points in the 17 games that he's played. And I feel like going off Drew's point that if he fills in a bit more, like he's 6'4", 180 right now. if he can get to like 6'4", 195, 200 at the beginning of next season, I feel like he's just going to be a completely different player. I mean, he's really lanky and skinny right now. If he can fill out a bit, he's going to be a pain to deal with on the ice. And it's going to really help his game, and he could really take his game to the next level. And it'll be interesting to see if he does that, because he's always going to be that tall, kind of lanky guy. But I definitely think he can, fill out some muscle and be a really, really difficult guy to deal with.
It would be really helpful for the Ducks on the third pair to have that guy, young, mobile, and a big guy at that to kind of, muscle guys around a little bit, because he's been pretty quiet, right? He's not a big hitter. He's the guy who makes a smart play, and like you said, he hasn't made too many issues for the Ducks in the defensive zone, despite being paired with the older guys, with Bosch and BX for the majority of the time.
Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. I personally would love to see Larson get a shot, but I also don't want it to have to come at the cost of Marcus Pettersson. Unfortunately, it probably will end up being the case. But moving on in the chat, another question about Richie, because it's kind of going off our discussion. Christopher said, is Richie's first-round pick status the only reason he's still around? Because all we really hear about him is that he still has that potential, it seems like, because of the fact that he was picked 10th overall.
I think so. I really feel like that's the case. Bob Murray and company don't want to admit a mistake, for a first-round pick. And, the longer they go without trading him, if that's their plan, the lower his value is going to be, because I just don't, we just got to talking about him. I don't feel like he's going to be that guy that they're all hoping for him to hit 60 points and, be a power forward and score. I got to feel like that's the only reason why. They're just okay with where he's at, and he's going to be a third or fourth line guy for this team. Like we said, we'd be shocked if they traded him.
Yeah. I don't know. The guy who always comes to mind when we talk about guys who were drafted high and didn't really pan out is Nail Yakupov. And I know it's a different situation because Yakupov was drafted first overall, but it always seems like that. I mean, the Oilers were reluctant to give up on him because they always felt like if he had a change of scenery, he was all of a sudden going to become this guy who they thought they were drafting first overall. And maybe I feel like that's what the Ducks have, kind of feel with Nick Ritchie, is that if they trade him at this point, he's still a young guy. If he just gets a change of scenery, maybe he'll become that 50, 60 point guy that they were hoping for. And I think that's obviously too much to ask. But when you're a GM and you draft a guy, you kind of hope a lot for him to turn out to the guy you expected from him. And it's tough to let him go because there's always that chance that he could go to another team and all of a sudden fulfill that potential and become the player you expected. So I feel like that has to deal with it a lot. I feel like that's on the mind of a lot of fans, and I think that's why he gets a lot of flack as well. I mean, there's a lot of other guys the Ducks could have drafted at number 10, and his production isn't awful for an NHL player, but for a guy who was drafted so high, it is.
What's the point total for Nick Ritchie right now? Do you know?
I don't know if this is updated based off the goal tonight. I think he scored his 9th tonight, right?
Yeah,
so he would be at
26 points.
Yes, 26 points in 72 games, which is 2 away from his career high set last year. And he has 5. Well, in 5 less games, he only has 4 games to break it. He'd have to get 3 points in his next 4 games to pass his career high. So,
Nail Yakupov's played 57 games this year and has 9 goals and 16 points. So,
wow.
What a compare the two. Richie's got to beat on points, but also games played.
Who would you rather have? Nick Ritchie or
Nick Ritchie?
Yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, I like the physicality in the game. Give me that guy every night. I want the guy who can throw a punch and make a hit, and then bury a puck. That's my favorite type of player, right? That's like your prototypical hockey player. If you're going to build a hockey player from scratch, I know everyone's like, "Oh, Connor McDavid's got all this speed and he's dazzling and amazing," and I agree with you, he is. But my favorite type of hockey player is like a Brendan Shanahan, that, or a Ryan Getzlaf, right? I mean, this guy's a beast. And the game's less physical than it is now. But, I remember growing up watching those power forwards. They're my favorite player.
Yeah. And speaking of Ryan Getzlaf, we had a question on Reddit from Godslav, who said, long question, but I'll read it all. He said, been listening to you guys for a couple months now, but never really commented. I wanted to hear more about Godslav. How great has he been this year, and has this league seen a better passer since Gretzky, especially since he leads the league in assists per game?
Man, that's putting him
Yeah.
up there in some elite company. Because when I think of elite passing, the first person I honestly think of is either Joe Thornton or Sidney Crosby. Getzlaf's up there too. Getzlaf's a beast. He's definitely from 6'7" center, right? Would you put him around that high?
I feel like, and I'm
got
looking
most of
up
that.
right now assists per game leaders over their career in the NHL. I'm trying to see where he ranks, but I feel like right now he's definitely one of the top passers in the game. I feel like Joe Thornton is still up there. Even he's been hurt this year, and he's obviously getting a lot older as well. He's a little bit older than Getzlaf is, so you don't see it as much. But when Thornton was in his prime, I mean, I don't think there's any question to who the best passer in the game is. All right, so I pulled it up here. So here is the assist per game over their careers. So Wayne Gretzky leads the way at 1.32 assists per game, so which is insane. Lemieux
insane.
is second, 1.129. You've got Bobby Orr, Peter Forsberg, and then we have our first current player on the list. I'm going to get a little bit of a trivia. Who do you think it is? Who do you think the current player in the NHL right now that leads as fifth overall in career assists per game?
Oh, Lord. At least give me the conference.
Eastern Conference.
I should have figured that one. Eastern Conference player currently suits up still right now.
Yes.
Assists per game. I'm going to go Sid.
Yep. Sid has .816 points per game. Assists per game. That puts him in front of guys like Peter Stastny, Adam Oates, Paul Coffey, Marcel Dion, Dale Hawerchuk, and Joe Sakic. So
Yeah.
he's in some pretty elite company. As for current NHLers on this list, Nick Backstrom is at 18th with .724.
Thanks, Ovi.
Yep, exactly. Evgeny Malkin at .712. He's 21st.
Underrated.
Yeah, and just under Steve Yzerman and Guy Lafleur is Joe Thornton at 26th with .69, and then our boy Ryan Getzlaf sitting right behind Joe Thornton at .684 for his career. So he's top 30 all-time in assists per game.
Which is insane. There's been thousands of hockey players that have played this game over the years, and Ryan Getzlaf is no joke when it comes to his abilities. He is one of the best for sure, right? I mean, we just proved it right there with the assists per game, but Sid's got to be the guy. I just feel like Sid's the best.
Yeah, and it's almost like because Sid does so much that he doesn't get enough credit for being one of the best passers in the league, because he's still a guy who can score like 30, 40 goals, and he just does everything well. I feel like he doesn't get enough credit. I think you hear more about guys like Backstrom, Thornton, and Getzlaf because they really just... that's what they do. Their bread and butter is putting up assists and setting up guys. They usually don't hit around more than 15 to 20 goals on a season, so I feel like they're a little bit up there. And I guess if you can say they're underrated, Malkin and Crosby kind of get underrated in their passing ability because they end up scoring more goals usually than the other guys on that list.
Oh, Malkin for sure is underrated. He didn't make the NHL top 100, which is a joke.
Joe Thornton didn't need it, did he? Or did he? I don't think he did.
You don't think? Maybe Jumbo Joe didn't make it.
Because I think I've always seen that people are saying like everybody says Malkin is that like number 101. That's like the running joke is he's out of the 101st best player.
Yeah, no,
in the
Joe
NHL.
Thornton. You're right.
Yeah, so I thought I heard that about Joe Thornton as well. But going back to the chat here, Matt said that Adam Oates was the best since Gretzky. He has the numbers to at least put him in that discussion. Dean said Getzlaf is in his own league when he doesn't bring the Arby's turnovers with his drop passes, which we haven't seen in a while. Matt and Christopher saying Backstrom is a guy that they had thought when I asked you the question about Crosby would be the guy from the Eastern Conference. So again, Crosby getting a little bit underrated than that. And then Gordon saying Getzlaf is smart with his physicality, though he's not just out here boarding and cross-checking, he's controlling the play and muscling other players to his pace. And I think we've mentioned that multiple times, the fact that Getzlaf can just slow the play down. It's something that not many guys can do.
No, he can just shrug you off with one arm, too. Like, that's in stride. Just grab you and shove you away from him. So, yeah, he really knows how to use all the tools that he's been given, and he does it well. He's a beast.
Yeah, we had a question from Matt asking about the assists per game. He was asking how was Duncan Keith in the NHL Top 100 winning? The Blackhawks.
He's been great, but The one that I roll, if you're going to put Taves in, you got to have Malkin in him.